We're quite lucky here. We've got a big area. So when we have 70 odd juniors down here on a Friday night, there's plenty of space, and we can have 3 or 4 different training groups spread out across the ground. The most important thing is obviously to stop one group being injured by balls being hit by another group. So the first thing you have to do is make sure you've got sufficient space, and that if you're using nets, for example, with the under 15s, that they're not smashing the ball directly at a group of under 11s. That's the first thing. The second thing, as a coach, you've got to make sure that the ground you're working on is actually suitable for practice. We've got a wonderful outfield kept by full-time groundsmen, but clubs, there's a variety of facilities, and it depends really how much work goes into the ground to make the outfield as smooth as possible. Obviously, as a coach, you've got to review the area before you start, make sure there's no hazards. If you're obviously in a public area, it could have been used by dog walkers during the week before you start your practice, so clearly that's an issue. But you also have to make sure there's no rabbit holes or other things where the kids can injure themselves. And then you've got to make sure that the area you're using is sufficiently large for the activity that you want to do. Because clearly, if it's too small and you've got too many children in a concentrated area, there's every chance one of them will get injured. So it's just a little bit of awareness, a little bit of risk management before you get started. A number of clubs used ball stop netting to try and divide up the various groups. Others just carry on and just make sure they've got them pointing in the right direction, really. So it's just a little bit of awareness on the coach's part, maybe also on the welfare officer's part, if they spot things that are perhaps looking a little bit dangerous. The cricket club has overall responsibility for any training taking place at its facility, and they may hire in coaches or they may use their own club coaches. The club will have the responsibility. However, if the coach goes against the instructions of the club, then he could have his own negligence, particularly if he's self-employed or contracted in. And that will obviously fall under his either public liability policy or his professional indemnity policy, depending what he has. So 3 things that I think probably would help on this matter is make sure that you've got your group's training with a fair amount of room between them, or if that's not possible because you're on a relatively small ground, then actually have some ball stop netting between them to divide up the groups. The coach needs to manage the risk. He needs to have a look around before he starts to make sure there's no hazards. He needs to make sure his equipment also is suitable for the activity that he's trying to carry out. So they're the things I think people ought to look at, ought to think about when they're trying to set up a junior training session. Club requirements at the moment are that coaches, if they are not part of the ECB Coaches Association, need to have public liability and or professional indemnity cover. Now, the public liability for a coach covers third-party property damage and bodily injury. The difference between that and the professional indemnity cover is that the professional indemnity cover covers you for any advice that you give. So if there's an incident whereby a lad's batting and he hits the ball out of the net and another little lad gets hit with it, then obviously that would fall under the public liability policy. If the lad batting gets injured because he is doing what you've told him to do, but what you've told him to do is incorrect, you've given him the wrong technique to play a certain shot, then there would be the possibility they can come against you as a coach for negligence or bad advice. So that's the distinction between the two. We believe that clubs need to make sure that coaches have got both covers. We think it's important that the club coaches and anybody else they bring in are covered for negligence. And in every other sport, the coaches are covered for both public liability and professional indemnity.